Okay, so this is the second take of this video because the first one was just way too hateful and angry for YouTube or TikTok without getting my whole channel potentially in danger. So this is my second take on this, on why I cannot stand the Somalians in Minnesota. And this isn't some hate speech thing. This is from what I've seen with my own two eyes, being born and raised in Minnesota. I only left Minnesota about 8 years, and currently it is January 3rd of 2026. So 8 years ago is the last time I was in Minnesota, and it hasn't gotten any better from what I've heard from friends and family. How I feel that potentially my grandfather could have more time. And this is what angers me so much. It's because I've watched the Somalians in Minnesota, and for that matter, any country they touch, just turn to absolute shit. Why does that have to do with my grandfather dying of cancer? Because the Somalians go into any medical profession and go, I seek fix. And they do it so often, and they demand, and if doctors can't get to them immediately, they scream racism and I sue, and make their threats and everything like that. And so all these doctors have become so burnt out and just don't care anymore that they, in my opinion, shouldn't even be in the medical profession. From what I've heard, about 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago, my grandfather went into the hospital. He was sick. Doctors did some blood work, said, oh, well, he just has low white blood cell count. All right, get him out of here. Was that the start of his cancer? His all-over blood cancer? Everything? Was that the start of it? And they just don't give a shit enough that they said, nah, get him out of here. We don't care. And I'm trying to stay as calm as possible because there's a lot of rage and hatred boiling up inside of me right now, knowing that I'm never going to get to see my grandfather again because of some oopsies with the medical profession in Minnesota. And again, what does that have to do with the Somalians? Well, I've already mentioned that. And most people are like, well, this is just a scam and fraud thing. No, it's not just that. This has been ever since they touched foot in Minnesota. The United States has more Somalians than Somalia. Minnesota has the highest concentration of Somalians because they have the best welfare benefits in Sanctuary City and blah, 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 all that crap. I've watched them run around raising their children. They will never assimilate. They will never love this country. They're just here to invade and take over. And most people are like, oh, well, you're just being a racist Islamophobe and blah, blah, blah. Don't call me your made-up words. If you know anything about what a phobia is, I'm not that. I've seen it with my own two eyes. Them raising their children that if it's not Islam, it needs to not be here, except in a much more violent manner. I've watched the little Somalian kids glare at me with just straight hatred because I'm a white American and how they've acted. Well, that's not all Somalians, really. Why don't you research little child gets thrown off of second floor at Mall of America by a Somalian. St. Cloud Mall stabbing, where a Somalian is running around St. Cloud Crossroads Mall, which is the town I was born and raised and grew up in, running around going, are you Islam? No. Stab. He was brought down into J.C. Penney's by somebody that I wasn't friends with him, but I knew him. I shopped at his pew pew store and I used his pew pew range. I've watched them commit crimes after crime after crime. I've watched them just destroy St. Cloud, Minnesota. I've watched them destroy Minnesota. I've watched them get away with so much because you could be driving down the road and a Somalian will rear end you in his car or her car. And by the time you get out to assess the damage, there is 30 or 40 more Somalians running around going, "It is your fault, it is your fault." And the police are just like, I know somebody who lives in an apartment that has a lot of Somalians, and basically their child was being threatened with unaliving threats, saying, "We will unalive you," except much more violently, to the mom and to this child. She called the police, the St. Cloud Police Department. And once they found out it was Somalians, they're like, "Sorry, nothing we can do about it." I've watched them start gangs, take over strip malls, and turn it into basically something, if you're not Somalian, you don't go there. I've watched them completely destroy Minnesota, which was a beautiful place to live, minus the cold. I've lived it to where I went from one day going, "What the hell?" when I started cab driving. People were like, "Well, don't you carry a pew pew for protection?" I was like, "This is St. Cloud, Minnesota. What the fuck do I need a pew pew for?" To, hell yeah, I carry two with lots of extra magazines on me. Because it became that much of a dangerous shithole town. And this is the town I was born and raised in. This is the town that I grew up in. This isn't something that I'm just speaking hate speech because, oh, I read it on the internet or all this stuff that's going around about the Somalians on the internet. No, I watched it firsthand with my own two eyes. How they think that they're just above the law. They do whatever they want. And they get away with it too. And honestly, them going, "We're going to investigate this," and, "Oh, well, there's kids at these daycares now." Well, yeah, of course, because they called up all their Somalians, "Hey, free daycare for the day. Just bring all the children's." And of course, but yet you can see the one dude, "I'm just daycare worker. I own daycare." I don't know any of my aunt owned a daycare, and she wasn't wearing $2,400 glasses. Just saying. These people need to be deported immediately. If you don't like what I'm saying, get the hell out. I don't really give a damn. I wish I had more time with my grandfather. And I feel because of how the Somalians destroyed the healthcare system in Minnesota and destroyed Minnesota, that pretty much they robbed me of that. I for sure thought that I had plenty of time, that I'd be able to go up there this year, see him, and maybe go back a couple times this year and see him and my grandma. Now knowing that I'm never going to see my grandfather again because of an oopsies with the medical profession in Minnesota. And this wasn't the only family member that had an oopsies. My aunt, too. The medical profession fucked her over, and now she's gone too. They need to be stopped. They need to be deported back to their own country. Let them destroy themselves there. Let them destroy their own country even further. Or maybe take the ideas of what they learned over here, not that they learned anything, and maybe rebuild your country better than America. And this is, most people would say, "Well, why don't you go up there?" I don't have the money to go up and take an overnight flight up to Minnesota. And then, no, this isn't me going, "Somebody donate now." I don't give a fuck. I would love to go up there, but that's not in the cards. It's not in the universe. So this is my outlet, recording a video, expressing myself on the internet. I still have my grandma up there, and I want to go see her before something happens to her. I have my buddy and his wife that I'd love to go see before something happens to them. But the Somalians need to be stopped. They need to be deported. They need to leave America, because clearly it's been proven Somalian culture and Western culture don't mix. So with that being said, I'm going to end this video before I say something that at the time I won't regret. But just know that there's a lot more hatred building up inside of me towards these people, that they want a war. They want to make it into some sort of fight on leaving America. Cool.